what an amazing place to be able to work, to go in and to see the beauty of Mother Nature each and every day. With us now, let's bring in Shane Pliska. He's the president of Plantera. Thank you, Shane, for being with us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on.
I'm just so envious of your backdrop. I'm a person, I struggle. I do not have a green thumb.
Well, we have plenty of green thumbs here. And there really isn't a bad backdrop over here at Plantera. Every time I do one of these things, I just kind of move on to another nook and just broadcast amongst the plants and flowers. Yeah.
That is so awesome. For those that aren't familiar with your company, give us a backdrop. I know that mainly you're in, like it's interior landscaping, but you also do so much more.
Sure. So we started in the 70s as an interior landscaping company, which provides plants and flowers and the maintenance that goes with it to indoor spaces. So some of the local places that you might recognize would be like at Somerset Mall or Henry Ford Hospital here over in West Bloomfield. Those are examples of the facilities that we take care of with their indoor plants. And then we also have our flagship conservatory facility, which is right here in West Bloomfield on Drake Road. And so we built this building. In 2010, it replaced historic, or I would say older greenhouses that were from the 30s that couldn't be restored. And we now use the space as a wonderful wedding and event venue during normal times. Right now, we're limited at what we can do, but we have a really strong lineup beginning for when we expect things to come back.
So with that, how many people will it hold for a wedding?
Well, when we're back in operation fully, at that point, we could do up to about 200 people. We don't expect to do that number of people until we're allowed to, which we expect possibly would be sometime this fall. Maybe not. We don't know yet.
But I would think as someone that is planning a wedding, it would be just an amazing backdrop. Are you seeing more people are interested in having kind of that smaller, more intimate setting?
I am seeing that people just want to have fun and they want to have a reason to celebrate. They want to have a place to go out to. And so if it's for a wedding, I mean, that is, people are, we haven't been going out all that much. So it becomes even more of a treat to do so. So there's much more focus in on these future celebrations in many cases, or smaller ones that can happen now. It's there are, people are having fun. That's really what it is, because they need to.
Yeah, it has to be such a hard time planning a wedding, because can you invite 25 people? Or can you invite 250 people? No one knows what it's going to be 3 months, 6 months, 9 months down the road. So it definitely poses some challenges. But you have a beautiful facility there, and what an incredible backdrop.
Thank you.
So with that, let's talk about your business side. Has it been pretty level throughout this past year of the pandemic, or are you seeing ups and downs?
Well, we're seeing a tremendous demand for plants. And so even though we supply commercially, even for commercial spaces, they're looking to reinvent the workplace for when people come back to the office. And so there's an enormous amount of plans going on at most corporations around here, trying to figure out, well, what is the new workplace going to look like? Are we going to keep a hybrid model of going back to the office, or are we going to be fully at the office? But when we do, how are we going to look at it differently? And so plants are a real big part of all of those designs. And so our people have been busier than ever trying to meet the demand for these designs that we expect will be installing pretty soon. But a lot of these are in the planning phase at the moment.
That's really interesting to me. I'm surprised with that. And so how are plants do you think are going to be implemented to help realign the office space and the workspaces?
Well, I mean, let's face it. A lot of these workspaces that people were going to work in, the classic, cubicle farms that were from the 1980s, were not pleasant places to work. And so when we realize that a lot of these white collar functions can be done remotely or anywhere, and the workplace becomes more of a place where people want to collaborate, it's where there's more teamwork. It's just not about these individual boxes. It's a total mindset change. It's a design change. It's a work style change. Generationally, we already saw this before the pandemic, of younger generations saying, well, I can do a lot of my job from anywhere, but I still need to go to the meetings. We still need to be part of the culture. Okay. And so when you look at the future of the workspace in that regard, it's really exciting. I think that it's going to really benefit productivity in the long term, even though in the short term right now it's confusing because we have a lot of distractions. If people are homeschooling kids, or they're trying to figure out how to work unideal situations because no one was expecting to be working from home this often. It's going to be really fascinating to see what happens. But plants are part of that. It really is. Plants are really part of the future of workspace design in general.
Much nicer to look at than the cubicle, that is for sure. Shane Pliska with us here on the MegaCast. He's the president of Plantera. And with that, Shane, we know that if your team is busier than ever, so many companies are struggling right now getting employees. How is your company doing on that front?
Well, we're fortunate that that we've retained our people throughout the pandemic. We didn't do mass layoffs or anything like that has happened in different sorts of industries. But it is difficult to fill positions, and it's understandable as to the why. And so we're just doing our best. We're offering competitive rates. If you go on Plantera.com right now and look in our careers section, we have a number of job postings. So we have some exciting careers here if any viewers are interested in applying.
Do people have to have a green thumb, or can they learn on the job?
They can learn on the job, but liking plants is a requirement.
That is good to know. And with that, Shane, too, what do you think the future of your company is going to be over the next year or two?
Well, I mean, we're pretty excited. I'm optimistic on the trajectory of the vaccines. Our event team has been retained as well, and they're actively planning weddings every single day. So we're really excited to get back to full capacity whenever that happens. We see a lot of growth especially over the next 2 years. I think that's true for a large percentage of a lot of businesses around us too.
Yeah, I know people have pointed out after the Spanish flu of 1918, we went into the roaring 20s. And so when we come on the backside of this, people are definitely going to be looking to have a lot of fun.
I hope so. And we need it. We really do. We are not, people that belong in caves. We need to be out there and social. We are social beings. So this isolation, I think is, the end of the isolation is the medicine that we really need from a mental capacity. We need to celebrate life.
And do you find, or have you seen an interest in more plants from people? Because we've been through the pandemic and we are starting to take advantage of getting outdoors and exploring our backyards more now than ever.
I mean, the answer is yes, and it's true for indoors as well as outdoors in terms of home gardeners. And that's one of the reasons why there's a shortage of actual certain plants right now, because so many people have demanded to have plants in their homes because we're in our homes all the time.
Yes, that is so true. And with that, when it comes to the office spaces, how has that been working? Because so many office buildings are closed down right now, or maybe just have skeleton crews within the buildings. Does that impact your work at all or no? Because you still have to maintain the plants, whether people are in the building or not in the building.
So of course it impacts what we do. Fortunately, the majority of our customers that utilize our services have chosen to keep our services, so they can maintain the investment that they made in the plants so they won't die. And the truth is, I'd say the majority of our clients, there is a percentage of, the office workers who are there. They are utilizing their facilities in just a smaller capacity. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm hearing some offices are basically doing like a hybrid situation, like just like the schools did, right? Where, okay, Tuesday is team A and team B, and you switch on and off and this, that, and the other. So people are getting very creative throughout this pandemic. But there has been a lot of focus on, will people return to the office buildings? Are you worried at all in the long term that some of these businesses will allow people to remain remote and we'll see the office building setting going away?
I am not concerned about that because everything evolves over time. And so plants are generally placed in what I would call the public facing spaces. And so those public facing spaces are not going to go away. In fact, there's going to be more meeting spaces. There's going to be more loungy type spaces, collaborative spaces. So even though there is a great deal of work at home, which will stay, that in-person collaboration is not going to go away. In fact, what we're noticing is that we need it even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, Shane, we're talking about Shane Pliska. He's the president of Plantera. With that, Shane, too, as we look forward to the future, I'm just wondering, is someone with a very black thumb, I can't keep a plant in my house alive. How do you do it in these office buildings? And what are the logistics involved in your business?
Well, I mean, being in a cold climate here in Michigan, the logistics in wintertime are a lot more challenging than during the summer. But we have a wonderful trained group of people here that know how to handle the plants, to bring them in and out of buildings and also maintain them. Our warranty covers these plants inside these facilities, provided that we have access to maintain them. So that means that we actually will swap out the plants before they look ill. So to someone who doesn't know that we do that, it just means that, oh gosh, these plants look fabulous here all the time. But it very well could be the case that those are new plants that have been rotated out after so many months or years in that case. Yeah.
So what's the secret to picking the right plant for the right environment?
It's called light. So light dictates everything. Because when people talk about plant food and they look at these little cartons like it's ingestible food, that's not how plants eat. Plants eat from the sun. They need to photosynthesize. That's how they get their energy. And so there's certain plants that do better and are more tolerant of lower light. And then there's also plants that need a whole lot of light. And so most failures is because of a lack of light.
Wow. So when you go into a new business, say maybe a new client, you really have to study the layout of that building.
We do, and we have light meters, and so we measure the light, and we have our palette of plants that are going to do well or perform the best in those light conditions. And what's also really nice about modern, I would say, newer windows and new lighting systems is that workplaces have much better lighting than what we used to have, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, definitely 30 years ago. And what's actually been good for the plants is actually good for the people too. So it's kind of like the plant's kind of like the canary of the workplace. So if you can't keep a plant alive in your place, it's probably not a healthy place for you to be working in 8 hours a day either.
Oh, that might be a good one to put past the bosses, right?
There is truth in it. Yeah, there is. These plants require similar conditions that we need.
Well, we're talking with Shane Pliska. He's the president of Plantera. And with that, Shane, I have to ask, go ahead and give up a secret. Do you own a fake plant at all?
Of course I do. And so I don't know if you're familiar with the term biophilia, but biophilia, what we call them replica plants, achieve some of the same benefits from a psychological standpoint in terms of making our brains feel as though that we're near nature. We don't discriminate on the plastic plants, but there's bad plastic plants and good and higher quality ones, and they also have a lifespan, and that's the most important things about replica plants is it's not permanent. The compounds that it's made out of will get covered in dust and will dissolve over time.
Oh, see, that's fascinating. I learn something new every single day on this show. So with that, Shane, where can people find more information?
More information about plants, Plantera.com is a great resource. If you would like to learn about our botanical conservatory for weddings, PlanteraEvents.com is a site that has all the information on how to book an event here.
So are you guys booking up pretty quickly? How far out are people having to book?
Well, because of so many postponements that have been occurring for events, we're pretty much full through 2023. So it is hard to get dates here. We have some openings, but not many. Yeah.
Wow, 2023, that's amazing.
It takes a lot of work to plan a wedding.
It really does. Well, fingers crossed that this year, many of the weddings that were postponed, rescheduled for this year can continue to go on without more delays. Shane, we always appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be on here.
Before we let you go, anything maybe I didn't ask that you want to share before we say goodbye?
I just wanted to share that that plants really is medicine in many ways. And I would encourage everybody just for their own mental health to either have a plant at home and get outside. We all need to have this. Plants are part of health. They really are.
Yeah, but we are so lucky if we can enjoy Mother Nature. You have a beautiful place that you work. I know I'm lucky enough to live on the West Bloomfield Trail, and it does make a big difference when you can enjoy nature. So great advice, Shane. Thank you again for your time.
My pleasure.